Right, so the last one. In each of the following diagrams, find the value of x and y and your answer in surd form where necessary. So I briefly spoke about surd form before, but I'll explain it in more detail now. Okay, so x is in this triangle up here and y is in this triangle down here. This triangle, the one at the top, is better off because I know two of the bits and there's only one bit to find. Whereas down here, I don't know this one, I know this one, and I don't know this one. Okay, so I'm going to have to start with the top one. If this is a right angle here, then this is a right angle here. So that makes this my hypotenuse. So c squared equals a squared plus b squared. 7 squared equals 3 squared plus x squared. So 49 equals 9 plus x squared. And then minus the 9 on both sides to balance. So 40 equals x squared. And then take your square root in both cases. And x equals, and if we type the square root of 40, the first thing that comes up before you press SD is 2 square root 10. And that's surd form. If I press the SD button, I get like 6.32. So that's in decimal form or to 2 decimal places or whatever. But if you leave it with the square root, that's surd form. Okay? So we know that this is 2 root 10. And the fact that this thing in the middle here is a square, then this is also 2 root 10. Okay, here's your right angle, which means that is the hypotenuse for the second triangle. So we just go again. This time the hypotenuse is 2 root 10 squared, then 4.5 squared plus y squared. 2 root 10 squared, so that's in my calculator, and I'm just hitting squared, and you get 40. 4.5 squared equals 20.25 plus y squared. Same again, this is a plus, so we get rid of it with a minus 20.25. And over here we have minus 20.25. So y squared equals 40 minus 20.25 is 19.75. And again, square roots, get rid of the square root to balance. And we get y equals the square root of that answer. And in surd form, we get the square root of 79 over 2. Okay, so it was just two Pythagoras's. It's just made much, not harder, just uglier, I suppose, because it's got the surds in it. It's got all the square roots. But you have your calculator, so it shouldn't affect you. The previous one, I mean, the first part was fine once you linked up your corresponding sides. Second part, that x minus 12, I didn't expect that to be there. I mean, it's not something that's beyond you as a higher level student, but possibly now I wouldn't expect many people to have got that, okay? But hopefully you understand it after my explanation. All right, so that's all the solutions. So correct your work, please, and let me know if there's anything you still don't understand. For today, I want to move on to the new chapter, which is chapter 12, and it's statistics, okay? Now, the start of this chapter is very definition-y, because that's a word. So it's more just about taking down notes, really, as opposed to actually kind of properly understanding anything here. So you go and you collect your data, okay? And we'll talk about different ways that data can be collected. And then data is in two categories, okay? Or classifications, I should say, because of the word. It's either categorical or it's numerical, okay? Now we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but essentially numerical is when the answer is numbers, and categorical is essentially, in a nutshell, when it's not numbers. Okay, that's basically the difference between them. Now, primary data you might have come across in history or even business. Primary data is data that is collected by an individual or another. So you're calculating or collecting the data. So like if I sent you out to the bottom of the hill there out into Blanche Village and I wanted to know, I don't know, how many people were carpooling or how many single driver cars there were. If I sent you down into the village for an hour and got you to count, then you are collecting primary data because you're collecting it yourself. Okay, secondary data in the second box is data that's collected by somebody else and you're just using it. Okay, so if you go on to like, I don't know, if you wanted to know about the number of births that had occurred during 2020 and you go on and access the Rotunda's database, then you didn't gather that data. You are just using data somebody else has gathered, so that's called secondary data. Okay, so that's the difference between primary and secondary data. So like I said, we'll do this in a bit more detail. So categorical. Questions that cannot be answered with numbers. So again, like I said, it's not numbers. Okay, so categorical data is when it's not numbers. There's a couple of examples here. You don't need to take any of this down. So like all you need is what's primary data, what's secondary data, and now what's categorical data. So questions that cannot be answered with numbers. So what films have you seen last year? Like the answer to that is the name of the film. They didn't ask you how many films you saw. That would make it numerical because your answer would be, oh, I saw 11 films or I saw 8 films. When they ask you what films you saw, you will be answering with the name of the film. And what colour are your eyes? Again, the answer to that is blue or green or brown. It's not a numerical answer. Your favourite soccer team, Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City. The answers are not numbers. Do you get the idea? Okay. Categorical data can be further broken up into ordinal and nominal. Okay. Ordinal, you can see it in the word. It's data that can be ordered in some way. Now that sounds really complicated. It's not. If you look here, examples, exam results would be ordinal categorical data. So what did you get in your exam? You could say like that, I got a distinction, I got a higher merit, I got a merit. And if you were to list, or if I as a teacher were to list all of the grades that I got in maths in the junior cycle last year, I would start with the distinctions and then I'd move to the higher merits and then I'd move to the merits and so on. Okay, you do it in order. Stress levels, what's your current stress level? Low, medium, high, or high, medium, low. You put them in order. Okay, nominal then cannot be ordered. Okay, so some of the ones from above, what colour are your eyes? So if I sent a group of you off to ask the first years, what colour are your eyes? You know, one group you might come back and you'll have the brown-eyed people first and then the green-eyed people and then the blue-eyed people. And then another group will come back and you'd have put the blue-eyed people first and the green-eyed people. And so, like, there's nothing to say what should go first, what data should be gathered first in that case, whether you start with the blue-eyed people or you start with the brown-eyed people. There's no obvious order. If there's no obvious order, then it's nominal categorical data. Okay, I probably should have said this before, but there's a nice little table down below, which might be a nice way of displaying your notes. Okay, so let's have a look here. So 5 students, Mark, Aoife, Paula, Cassia and Luke, were asked 2 questions. What was the last movie you saw? And describe your stress levels before an important exam. High, middle or low? They gave the following answers. So Mark said Despicable Me, Aoife said the Lego movie, Paula said Jungle Book, Cassia said Despicable Me and Luke said Spider-Man. And then for question 2, with the stress levels, Mark is high, Aoife's middle, Paula's low, Cassia is high, and Luke is low. So is the data generated by question 1 nominal categorical data or ordinal categorical data? Okay, so first of all, I hope everybody's happy that it's categorical. There's no numbers. They listed the movies. Now, so is it nominal with no order, or is it ordinal with an obvious order? Okay, so the answer to that is that it's nominal categorical data. There is no obvious order to put those movies in, so that's what we call it. Second one, again, same question, is it nominal, categorical data, or is it ordinal? So again, we agree that it's categorical because there's no numbers. And now, if I was listing that data, if I wanted to list that data, I'd say high, I had 2 students. Middle, I had 1 student. Low, I had 2 students. I do it with an order. You might go low, middle, high, but I doubt anybody would go middle, high, low. Okay, there is an order to it, so that's ordinal categorical data. Numerical data then, that's numbers. So how many people in the EU are employed in agriculture? The number is going to be like, I don't know, 164,000. How many Irish people emigrated in 2018? Again, it's going to be a number. How many houses? It's going to be a number. What temperature in Dubai midday on the 5th of June 98? Again, it's a number. Okay, so numerical data is questions that can be answered with numbers. Again, it can be split into 2. Okay. The first one is continuous. Now, the way I like to describe continuous data is that, generally speaking, it has a unit, okay, and also it can be written as a decimal. Okay, now let me go on and talk about the other one, discrete, as sort of a contradictory or an opposing view of what continuous is. So discrete generally is not a decimal. Okay, so it tends to be whole numbers. Right, so let me explain. So they're both numerical because they both be numbers, but continuous data has a unit. So it would be things like temperature, because that's degrees Celsius, or height, centimeters, or weight, kilograms, rainfall, generally millimeters. Yeah, it's normally millimeters, isn't it? So anything with a unit like that. The other thing about these kind of numbers is that depending on the equipment, you can measure it. So, you can have a temperature of 37.24 degrees if you have a thermometer that will measure that. You can have a weight of 60.244 kilograms if you have a weighing scales or a mass balance that will measure that. Okay? So decimal and unit for continuous data. Then discrete data is whole numbers. It'd be like how many books are in your bag. So there's 4 books, or there's 5 books, or there's 8 books. There's not going to be 6.75 books in your bag. How many people live in your house? It's going to be 3 people, or 2 people, or 5 people. It's not going to be 5.65 people. Okay, so discrete is whole numbers. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, the little table. So data is split up into 2, which is categorical or numerical. Numerical is numbers. Categorical is not numbers. Categorical then is further split into nominal and ordinal. Ordinal is when there is an obvious order, and nominal is when there's no obvious order. Numerical can be split up into 2. Continuous numerical data have units, and they can be decimals. Discrete generally are whole numbers. Okay, and you need to know and be able to describe all of those. Okay, so here's another one. Aoife, Sean, Casey, Senan. They're asked 2 questions. The first one is, how many songs are on your favourite playlist, and what is your height? Here are the answers. So they all gave an answer of how many songs are on their playlist. That's question 1. And then they all gave their heights in question 2. So is the data generated by question 1 a discrete numerical data or continuous numerical data? So again, hopefully it's obvious that they're numerical because they all have numbers, so that would make sense. So is it discrete or continuous? Okay, the number of songs on the playlist, you can see it. Okay, they're all whole numbers. They don't have units. If you think about the question, the number of songs in your playlist, you're not going to say I have 4.5 songs. you have 4 songs, or else you put on the 5th song. So it has to be whole numbers. So that is discrete data. Second one has units and has decimals. Okay, that's continuous data. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I have questions there that I want you to do. I think there's 3 of them. So I want you to try them for Friday, please. Okay, so I went through all that statistic stuff kind of quick there, but obviously you have the benefit of being able to pause me and shut me up that you don't normally have in class. But let me know if there's any issues.